there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with this week's episode of the Rogues Alley. This week I want to go back to an archetype that I play a lot on this channel, which is probably my favorite type of deck in Modern, which is a Soul Sisters build. But this one I'm going to go and play a red version of the Soul Sisters that is centered around Norin the Wary. And I thought I'd go back to this deck because we have a cute little new addition to the deck with Thalia's Lieutenant, which really puts us in, I would say, 12 cards that get huge in this deck. Actually, this deck is going to be a very, very heavy creature-based deck. Some of the Norin the Wary actually have about 20 creatures, and then a lot of spells like Return to the Ranks and Path to Exile is main boarded, and a little bit higher on like the Mentor the Meeks from Purphoroses and Genesis Chambers in the main board. But this one's going to be more of a Soul Sisters meld with the Norin the Wary version with a full 32 creatures just to continue to put pressure on the opponent. So the Thalia's Lieutenant is going to get huge in this deck. It's going to be another champion, the Parish. But what I really like about Thalia's Lieutenant is it actually puts +1/+1 counters on your Soul Wardens and Soul Attendants. And that allows them to survive like Electrolyzes and Golgari Charms. There's Night of the Soul's Betrayal, things like that that can sweep away your 1/1s that are actually very, very, very good in this deck of giving you that life per turn every time that Norin the Wary triggers. So it also, one of my favorite combinations in Soul Sisters right now, and why I've decided to go a full 4 of count of Thalia's Lieutenants instead of Squadron Hawks in my regular Soul Sisters build, is the first turn Serra's Ascendant into the second turn Thalia's Lieutenant, making your Serra's Ascendant a 2/2 is incredibly powerful in Modern, as now you have a 2/2 lifelinker that, again, survives those Electrolyzes and Gut Shots and Golgari Charms. And it actually, a 2/2 puts a ton more pressure than a 1/1 and helps you get to that 30 life total for the Serra's Ascendant, turning into now a 7/7 flying lifelinker when it has that counter on it. I've just found Thalia's Lieutenant to be incredibly powerful. It doesn't even feel like a dead drop later on if you even have just 2 Soul Attendants. Very often I'll go like a Ranger of Eos to fill back up my hand, have a Ranger out and 2 Soul Wardens, and then pop down a top deck of Thalia's Lieutenant. Now you have a 4/3 Ranger and 2/2 Soul Sisters. Or if you have like an Pure out, then it's going to be, you're going to have 3/3s respectively. I mean, it is a very good card in the deck. So I'm going to go ahead and run a full set in this list as well, with a full set of Champion the Parishes, and see how well the Norin the Wary works with these cards. I am going to be running on one of Auriok Champion main board instead of just another Soul Warden. I like the Pro Red on this. I have 3 of them in the sideboard. I've just kept my Soul Sisters sideboard almost the exact same, just taking out for the destruction, for the artifact and enchantment destruction. I'm going to go Wear Tear. I think Wear Tear is a little bit better than Sundering Growth in this type of build, as the mana base is a lot easier and it can destroy an artifact and an enchantment if you fuse it. So I'm going to just put the Mentor of the Meek in the sideboard. I think it's better in the sideboard. You want it versus decks that you really need to draw cards. The majority of decks in Modern now, you just need to stabilize, and this deck does extremely well with stabilization. And the Genesis Chamber and the Purphoros are going to be kind of your card draw, because you're going to get 2 damage out of your Purphoros. We have the 3 of Rangers. I might want to go back up to a 4 of Rangers. I just think that Ranger is that good. I'm only going to run 3 paths in the sideboard. These will come in versus the infect decks and just any sort of deck where we have to kill a specific creature. But right now in Modern, I have 2 main boarded in Soul Sisters, and it seems to be doing the job, because the majority of the decks you just don't care if your opponent's playing like Tarmogoyfs, because you don't need to path those. Your creatures can become bigger, they're going to start outclassing the Goyf, and a Path to Exile just seems like a waste of a card in those type of instances. Just don't want to Return to the Ranks, because I've found this card actually a lot worse now with all the amount of graveyard hate. Like Jund running 3 to 4 Scavenging Oozes main board. You see a lot of Relic of Progenitus going around, a lot of Leyline of the Voids and things like that. I just don't want to rely on Return to the Ranks. And a lot of the matchups where I want to bring in Return to the Ranks, I also want to bring in Rest in Peace. So it's just kind of a non-bow when you're bringing in your own Rest in Peace. Speaking of Rest in Peace, you could actually go up in the count of Rest in Peace. It does very good against Nahiri Jeskai. It is also very good against Dredge. So if the metagame keeps shifting towards those Snapcaster type decks or the Dredge type decks, Rest in Peace will probably start overtaking Stony Silence as the hate card in the sideboard. Stony Silence is still good versus the affinity decks and Lantern control decks, as well as it's decent versus Tron. We just have to just concede that we're going to be bad against Tron. I guess you could put Blood Moon in this deck, but then our mana base is pretty greedy ourselves. So if you're going to put Blood Moon, I think that Flagstones and Ghost Quarters probably need to come out, and then just a lot more basics, basic planes, and then you could have Blood Moon in the sideboard, which I'm not against because Blood Moon is pretty powerful of a card, and everything you can see in our deck only costs 1 white except the Auriok Champion, and so you could easily throw a Blood Moon or 2 in the sideboard. I might just have to do that. I guess we could go down in the count of Flagstones of Trokair. I like to run multiples of this because it just thins out the deck, but it's also a great target for the Ghost Quarters to kill your own Flagstones, and then you don't net down any mana by doing so. So if you go for like first turn Flagstones and put out a 1-drop, then you can go second turn, tap your Flagstones, drop a Ghost Quarters, kill your Flagstones. You'll get an untapped land from the Ghost Quarters, which means you'll still have 2 mana that turn, as well as getting a basic land and a Sacred Foundry from the Flagstones of Trokair. So we're just testing out to see if those are good or not. I've seen Slayer Stronghold in this deck, but I've decided just to go Needle Spires. I don't know which one's going to be better. This one actually adds red or white mana, or Slayer Stronghold just adds a colorless mana. So I'm not quite sure if which one's the better threat. They're both kind of playing a very similar role. The Slayer Stronghold can give any of your 1-drops haste, so they're 3 damage once the board is cleared, like if you're in a very grindy match versus some sort of control-based deck. But the Needle Spires also has that ability to very, very late game just actually animate it and swing in for 2. I think that, or 4 actually. I think Needle Spires is probably better positioned in a deck that is running like Honor the Pure. I think it has a pretty sweet ability with Honor the Pure, swinging in for 6 double strike. But again, I don't know if we have any room for Honor the Pure in this deck. I think you'd have to go down in the count of specific cards. So anyway, I think the Ghost Quarters are still good in this deck. There are plenty of decks where you want to kill off specific lands, Jund being one of them with the Raging Ravines. And then in the Eldrazi and Taxes, you can actually take out their Eldrazi Temple. And against Tron, Ghost Quarters is still pretty good against that deck. So again, I think that we might change this. I'm not going to queue this up in a league because I want to be able to make adjustments to the deck, and one of the adjustments we'll probably be trying out is the Blood Moon in the sideboard to see if it's actually worthwhile. And I don't know if Archangel of Thune is necessary in this. It seems like it's one of those cards that Purphoros is actually keeping that slot. And again, I'm not even sold on the Mentor the Meek. I don't think that you need to be drawing so many cards with this deck. I think that this is you're gonna stabilize, just get to like turn 4, turn 5, and then begin to outclass your opponent. And I think that Ranger is just a better card draw than Mentor the Meek. Mentor is a human, so the Thalia's Attendant can pump it up. A few other things can pump it up, but I don't know. Do we need an Eerie Interlude? I don't think we need an Eerie Interlude in this deck either. I think that we don't want to be all of our cards, like Ajani's Pridemates and whatnot. Eerie Interlude's good for like bouncing Soul Attendants and Soul Wardens, but if they have counters on them, then not so much. I think I've talked about everything else in the deck. So we have 4 Lightning Bolts still in the main board. I'm not even sold on this. Soul Sisters, I don't think really cares too much to be doing direct damage to the face, or even really removing early creatures. Like, early creatures are not a threat against the Soul Sisters deck because they can't push through. But I think Lightning Bolt, the ability to actually do damage directly to the face with this deck, can actually put us in range of some of those decks where we get them down low and then can just bolt them off. But we'll test and see if I like this card or not. If not, then there's some added power we can bring in with other cards. Path to Exile is just a better premier removal spell than I would say Lightning Bolt is. But we'll just have to wait and see how it works. Anyway, we'll try this in some 2-man queues and see how well it works. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.